Hi, my name is Paulina Hughes, and I'm the Senior English Fellow at Jesus. So welcome to these open days, which we wish we were able to hold in person. First of all, I wanted to introduce my colleagues. My colleague in medieval literature is Professor Marion Turner. She works on Chaucer. My colleague in 19th and 20th century literature is Dr. Will Ghosh, and he works on modern literature. Marion is currently on leave, so Dr. Ayush Lazekani is replacing her. So Ayush is another medieval scholar. And we also have Amanda Holton, who is teaching language. We are a very closely knit and friendly community. My own work is on early modern literature and history, and I'm responsible for teaching all the papers across the second year, which cover the period from the mid-16th to the early 19th century, including Shakespeare. And I'm also very heavily involved in teaching for the joint schools of history in English and classics in English.
Hello, I'm William Ghosh, and as Paulina says, I teach Victorian and modern literature here at Jesus College. As Paulina also said, we're really sorry we can't welcome you here in person to our open days, but we hope you enjoy looking through this video and looking through the online resources, both for Jesus College and for the English faculty. Paulina and I are going to be here to answer your questions at the Q&A, and we really look forward to meeting you virtually then. And in the meantime, as I say, I really hope you enjoy this virtual open day and finding out a little bit about Jesus College.
Students at Jesus can study English on one of 4 degree programmes. You can study English language and literature as a single honours degree, or you can combine it with something else as a joint degree. You can study history in English, classics in English, or English and modern languages, for example, English and French or English and German. The Faculty of English in the university admits almost 300 students every year, and you'll be part of that wider community. But you'll also be part of a more tight-knit community of people studying and researching English at Jesus. We usually admit between 5 and 7 students every year for English language and literature, and between 2 and 4 students per year across our joint degrees, or what we call our joint schools. This community at Jesus also includes graduate students studying for master's and doctoral degrees and academics pursuing teaching and research. All of your tutors will also be active researchers, as scholars, critics and writers. Your teaching at Oxford will largely be split across 3 formats. The most distinctive is the tutorial. In a tutorial, you meet your tutor individually or in groups of 2 or 3. You've usually prepared an essay or assignment on a particular topic and will discuss what you've found out and the argument you've made in your essay with your tutor and your tutorial partner. These usually take place in college. You will also have regular classes, either in college or in the faculty. These are slightly larger gatherings of between 5 and 15 students. You'll have been set reading or exercises in advance of the class and will discuss it with each other and with the tutor. Finally, you will attend, on average, between 4 and 6 lectures a week in the English faculty, taking advantage of the expertise of tutors from across the different colleges. You will have access to world-leading libraries and online resources, including our own college library. And you will take part in the extracurricular activities that we do as a community at Jesus. One of the most distinctive things about English at Jesus is the Herbert English Society. Twice a term, we have dinner together in the evening, and then we hear a talk from a distinguished writer or scholar. In recent years, for example, we've welcomed Ben Okri, Marina Warner, and Hermione Lee. We also organise regular visits to exhibitions and theatrical productions in Oxford or elsewhere related to what you're studying. We have an annual English dinner where we celebrate your achievements and, both in college and in the faculty, many of our students combine their academic study with theatre, student journalism, media, and creative writing.
Hi, we're Jesus second year English students. My name is Helena.
Hey, I'm Imi.
And my name's Lola.
We're just going to talk a little bit about what it's like studying English at Jesus and why you should apply. We kind of wanted to do it in this format because for me, one of the best things about English and Oxford is the way that we kind of learn in a really sort of dialogic environment, learning from each other and kind of gaining from each other's ideas. So in tutorials, we each come with an essay we've written, could be on completely divergent subjects, and kind of talk about what we've written and read, and then get a chance to ask each other questions about that and contribute our own ideas that could kind of like further each other's learning. So I think the great thing about like the way that we study is that we do all come from these really different perspectives, whether we're doing joint honours or just because of like what we're interested in or what we've read. So we kind of get to merge them in really interesting ways.
Yeah, definitely. So like, for example, in Tutes, I'll like tell the others like classical stuff that I know that helps, and they'll tell me stuff that I don't know about, like medieval English or early English that I have no idea about. So we all we have each other's backs, which is super nice. And it is like a heavy thing, you know, a degree, but it's not like the only thing that there is.
Yeah. And absolutely having that kind of companionship at all levels of it, you know, in the classes, in the tutes, but also then at times when you're very upset at like 10 o'clock at night doing an essay is like invaluable.
Yeah, that never happens. For I think all of us, if you ask most Jesus students why they chose Jesus, nearly all of them will say, because it's the friendliest college. And this is like the thing that everyone says about Jesus, is that it's like the friendliest college, but really it's not like a stupid thing that people have just said and it's just out of nowhere, but everyone there is genuinely very friendly. And I think what I would say about studying any subject at Jesus, but especially English and also classics, but English, is that you are like a little family together. You're friends and you know each other really well because you spend a lot of time together, a lot of time together. It's really not like a really specific, rigid degree form. You have to do all of these papers at the exact time and then you just graduate with all of this knowledge. It's not like that at all. It's so tailor-made and so specific to what you want to do, and that is really special. It is a very unique degree form, and that you do really have a say in what you read and what you learn about, and that's really cool.
There are a large number of wonderful English programmes at different universities across the country. Though they share a lot, each university will emphasise particular aspects of or approaches to the subject. So when you're thinking about where you might apply, it's really important to look in detail at how each degree is structured, what modules are on offer, and to really ask yourself that question: does this excite me? Does this sound like something I'd really love to go and find out about? At Oxford, the degree is largely structured historically. There's an emphasis on the development of the language and on media, and students are asked to engage with writing in Old, Middle and Modern English, spanning the years 650 to the present day. In your first term, for example, you'll study literatures in English from 1830 to 1910, and will begin studying the language and literatures of the period 650 to 1350. In your first year, you'll also take introductory modules in English language and in critical approaches, and you'll take a paper in literatures in English from 1910 right up to the present day. At the end of your first year, you can follow one of two pathways. In the first pathway, which we call Course 1, you spend the second year tracing literatures in English from 1350 through to 1830, and then you choose in your third year from a range of optional papers. You complete a Shakespeare coursework, and you go away and do an independent dissertation on any topic that you want to research further. In Course 2, which Dr. Lazzacani is going to explore in more detail, you'll focus on Old and Middle English, on medieval literature, and the early history of textual media. The Oxford degree is structured so that most of the time you're working on the same modules as your peers, and compared to some other universities, there are relatively few choices between modules. This is because the papers you study will be very broad. and you'll have a lot of choice about what topics, texts, and approaches you use within each paper. For example, in your first term, you'll study the literatures of the English-speaking world from 1830 to 1910. Now, this is, of course, an almost limitless topic. Your tutor will introduce you to a number of important texts and approaches, but in your exam, you can write on any text from within that period, taking any approach you like. So, teaching is geared around helping you explore and develop your own interests.
You hear a lot of myths about Oxford before you actually get here. In my case, I had this expectation that the course would just be full of predominantly white authors from ages and ages ago. And while that is a small and vital part of the course, my first year at Jesus studying English has been about studying text from all corners of the world in English, in all types of dialects, all genders and races. For instance, our tutor had us reading a Nigerian playwright who writes in pidgin English, and that's something I never thought I'd be studying in my life. And in our last online class, we were listening to reggae because we were doing about dub poetry, Jamaican dub poetry. My favourite thing about English this year is how personalised you can make your course. You're given a primary text, and then it's up to you to decide how you're reading it and where you're going to take it and what your focus in the essay is going to be.
At Jesus, we are very committed to interdisciplinary teaching and research, and we have several joint schools with English. So do think carefully, and if you have an interest in classics, if you have an interest in history or in a modern language, do apply to read English and history, English and classics, English and French, English and German. This is really a wonderful opportunity to bring two different subjects together, which actually go together very well.
I'm a joint honours student and I study English alongside German. So I thought I'd make this because if you're considering doing joint honours, or if you're torn between two subjects which you've taken at A-level, it might reassure you to know how interdisciplinary an English degree at Jesus especially is. So in this year alone, our tutor has taken us to the Ashmolean, which is an art gallery and museum in Oxford, to look at drawings and portraits which were produced in the Romantic period. And that was totally extracurricular, designed to enhance our understanding of the period. But it's such an interesting opportunity to have. And yeah, I suppose the main thing for you to understand is that you're not just going to be looking at literature, you're going to be looking at visual art, theatre, film, and not all in English as well. Obviously, for the German side, I have a look at texts in other languages, but there's so much overlap between them, and I can write up to half of my content for English in another language, be that German, French, or any other language which I choose for it to be. So the English degree is so versatile, and whichever interests you have, you can tailor your degree to complement those.
Hi, I'm Tom. I'm a second year student of history and English at Jesus, and I've had a really great time doing my course. I'd highly recommend it. I think it's got a fantastic variety of different options and a really good scope for shaping the course as you want it to be. And I think there are particularly three main things that make me glad I did history and English, not history or English. The first of which is the fact that you get this really nice effect where if you manage to do a history paper and an English paper in the same period, which I'd highly recommend if possible, the history sort of illuminates the English and the English enriches the history. And you just get such a deeper understanding of the period as a whole than you would if you were just doing one of the two subjects. So for example, this year I'm doing 18th century British history and English literature in the Restoration and early 18th century. and just the ability to contextualize the various texts that you do with that deep understanding of the political background and the social issues of the time, and just to be able to have a kind of mental image of what a day in the life of one of these authors would be like, I think is so important. And vice versa, for the history work that you'll do, being able to kind of enliven your essays and your general comprehension of what happened with specific literary examples, I think I really value as a student. So that's one thing, is the sort of synergy between the two sides of the course. I think a second thing is that you, I think, get a lot more freedom in the kinds of papers that you pick doing history and English than just doing, say, English, where it's quite a chronological, linear course where you have to do everyone from Chaucer to Samuel Beckett. With my course, you can branch off on a lot more weird, different tangents, I think. So say last year, I got to do a history paper about folklore and the nation state in the 19th century, and the way sort of the Brothers Grimm were enlisted to create a sense of what Germany is. And I found that just fascinating and bizarre, and I never knew it existed till I did it. And although I think you do get choices in the English course, I don't think you get to make weird ones like that as often. So this year I'm doing Shakespeare, technology from the year 1000 to 1700, medieval religion, just a really eclectic mix of stuff that, for me personally, I really like the variety of it. So that's the second thing, is that you can branch off in all these different directions. And I think a third thing is just that in the course of your weeks and months doing the course, it's really nice to be able to vary the sorts of things you're thinking about and the ways that you're thinking about them. Being able to have 1 week where you're really digging into the poetry of John Keats, say, and then another week where you do quite a broad overview of what happened in Britain in the 17th century, just gives you, I think it keeps it all fresh to an extent, and applying lots of different methodological lenses to the different bits and pieces that you're looking at. I think it probably also gives you a more kind of varied and versatile mindset as a student. So that's the third thing for me, is that the course challenges you to look at things in a broader scope, in a more multifaceted way. So yeah, to conclude, fantastic course, highly recommend. Go for it. That's me.
Jesus College and the University of Oxford welcome applications from absolutely everyone who wants to study here. In fact, the more viewpoints and experiences we have in our classrooms, the more diversity, the better the educational experience for everyone. And that may be particularly true for the study of English. In English, our study is very, very often discursive, and the object of our study is the different experiences and expressions of people through time and across the world. We will give you outstanding support to adapt to life at university and to the demands of university study, wherever you're coming from. So if you're someone who's thinking, I don't think this is for me, I don't think people like me go to Oxford, then think again. We really, really, really want to hear from you if you want to come here. The only people we can't admit are people who don't apply in the first place.
I read English at Jesus as an undergraduate from 2016 to 2019. From October, I'll be returning to start a doctorate. There's nowhere else I'd rather be to continue my studies. The English tutors at Jesus are immensely supportive of your work from the very first day that you arrive. Their help goes far beyond any expectations you might have of what a tutor would offer. They'll often meet with you in small groups or often individually to provide feedback and encouragement throughout your time as an undergraduate.
Coming from a state school as well, it might be easy to feel a bit of imposter syndrome, but you soon find that English at Jesus is a very level playing field, and your tutors are always there to make you feel comfortable and help you understand things that maybe you've never come across in your education.
Jesus has a very diverse community of both students and tutors. I am myself of Polish extraction. Among our current students, there are people from Malaysia and from India and from elsewhere in the UK, as well as Hong Kong and Paris. And our students go on to a whole range of careers. Among those I have taught at Jesus, I arrived here in 2003. Some have gone on to become teachers of English, others have become academics. I have one opera singer among former students. There are also lawyers, journalists, publishers, computer designers, and many other professions. So the opportunities are really endless. And we are very, very keen to attract students from all backgrounds. So don't let anything that someone said at school, that you read in the paper, that Oxford is not for you, that we are somehow off-putting and elitist, nothing could be further from the truth, certainly not about Jesus. The interview at Jesus is really something of a conversation. We want to find out how you think, what your interests are, why you want to study English, what books you read, what you find interesting about them. And we simply want you to enjoy this sort of exchange of ideas rather than feeling unduly daunted by it. So do come to Jesus, do come to the visiting days, and I very much hope that there will be an opportunity to meet you in person before long.